going to be at the office.
Yeah, so if you look at our proxy statement, it has all the information you need. There's a dial-in that you can call if you'd like to attend virtually, or you can come to the office in Rockville, Maryland. However, I don't believe it will be very well attended, just given the coronavirus, but you're more than welcome to show up if you'd like. All the information regarding our meeting is on the proxy statement, and it's also filed with the SEC. So all that information is there for you.
Okay. All right. So I'll be at your office then. I just want to you have an interesting situation with you being in phase 3 right now, and I don't know how deep into phase 3 you are, but you also have a potential issuance of additional shares, which would dilute the existing shares. Has that passed? Have you gotten enough votes for that?
Okay, so first question, we're not actually in phase 3. We've been approved for phase 3 for our SIN 004 program by the FDA, but that trial, we don't have plans to move that trial forward just because of the costs associated with that program. I believe that's been outlined multiple times on our earnings calls. So that program is moving forward in a smaller clinical trial where we anticipate getting the data that would allow us to move forward in a smaller patient population. And that when I say move forward, I mean with respect to FDA approval. So the company has pivoted towards a new strategy. We did this quite some time ago. And again, I mean, all that information is available publicly. So long way of saying that while we were approved for a phase 3 trial, the size and scope of the trial, the costs associated with that trial was not conducive for a company of our size and nature. So again, we've pivoted to a smaller patient population that'll allow us to move the program forward in a much more cost-effective manner.
The program, you're talking about the other products that you have, or the 04 SIN 04 product, or have you dropped that completely?
No, we haven't dropped that. I mean,
when you say smaller population, I'm sorry.
Patient population, yeah.
Smaller patient population. So, but you said you're not going into phase 3. So, and when I looked at the graphics on your website, or website of Synthetic Biologic, it kind of does imply that you're going into phase 3, but you're not going into phase 3. You're just going.
No, we've been approved for phase 3. That all of that is available. I mean, if we had the $80 million to move that trial forward into phase 3, we would. So that remains an option. It's just funding dependent, of course.
Okay, so it would cost about $80 million to move to phase 3 for that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Have you approved, or have you gotten enough votes to increase the number of shares?
All that information will be disclosed at the shareholder meeting. We don't provide the information until the shareholder meeting.
Okay, so no one else has the information. None of your analysts or anything have that information.
Correct. That's correct.
Okay. All right. Okay, so what is the future for the 04 product?
Right now we're working with Washington University in St. Louis. We were originally targeting C. diff, right? C. difficile infection, CDI. At this point in time, we're in a phase 1b/2a clinical trial in bone marrow transplant patients because the incidence of C. diff is around 30% in that patient population. So in essence, this trial was designed to look for a patient population where the incidence of C. difficile is high, but will allow us to move this program forward in a much more cost-effective manner. So think of it this way, right? The original phase 3 trial was approved, and it was sort of like a vaccine trial because the incidence of C. diff in the general population and the patient population that we had originally targeted is around 3 to 5%. So because a lot more patients would get the drug that wouldn't need the drug, the FDA required that we do a much larger trial. So in essence, this trial will allow us to look at about three patient populations, 3 study arms of 12, So it'll allow us to significantly lower the cost of the trial and determine whether we're able to reduce C. difficile rates, reduce the incidence of vancomycin-resistant enterococci in these patients. And, if you look at our phase 2B clinical trial data, it would be consistent with the results that we saw. Now, this specific patient population, allogeneic HCT patients, they are immunocompromised, and they receive IV beta-lactam antibiotics as part of their therapy, so their gut microbiomes are wiped out pretty substantially. So when they do get an infection, they're treated with broad-spectrum antibiotics, which we know has an impact on the gut microbiome. So the intention of this clinical trial is to determine whether or not there's a positive impact of our program within this patient population, and then potentially move it forward in a smaller phase 3, and then in a broader patient population. And then once it's approved, the plan would be to potentially look at other clinical indications where there could be utility of SID4.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does make sense. You're just trying to, you don't have the $80 million to do the phase 3 full force, so you're going to target smaller groups of people that would be in an emergency situation or a more desperate situation to try to implement your treatment or your prevention of C. diff with them.
It's not that they're in a more urgent situation. It's a different patient population entirely, right? These are very sick patients who are going in for bone marrow transplants.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
And part of their treatment is typically after they are conditioned, which means their immune system is wiped out. So that way, it's less likely when their immune systems are wiped out that they will reject the graft of the bone marrow. Mm-hmm. So acute graft-versus-host disease, in essence. However, they are in a hospital setting, and the likelihood of bacterial infection is high. So they're treated anyway with beta-lactam antibiotics. So yes, their situation is a bit more, what's the right word? I'm trying to be sensitive.
Serious?
It's more serious than, someone who goes into a hospital for, routine matter and is given antibiotics. Therefore, we believe that if we can show the utility of this program of SIN4 in this patient population, where the treatment severity is much more serious, as you said, then it will allow us to potentially move this program forward in a more expedited manner, more cost-efficient manner, so to speak. So in essence, we needed to pivot and reformulate our strategy to move it through the clinic.
I got you. So what do you expect this trial to cost you? Obviously much less than $80 million.
Yeah, so this trial is a single center site. We're partnering with Eric Duberky at the Washington University School of Medicine in St. Louis. He's one of our KOLs. I don't know if we've talked publicly about the cost, but it's much. The phase 1b/2a is much, much less. It's a fraction of the $80 million.
10%? 5%?
I don't know if we publicly disclosed that number, but it's much, much lower. Significantly lower. Again, it's a single site.
Right.
Which means it's one hospital system doing it, and they are one of the country's leaders in bone marrow transplant. Eric Duberky is kind of one of the experts in this,
right.
And they do about 400 or 500 bone marrow transplants a year. So they're experts in that field. So we're very confident that they'll do the work in an efficient and positive manner. So
okay. Next question I have is Mr. Kaleko has the patent for the primary treatment of this SIN04. Has that been assigned to your company, or is that open to be assigned to a company?
Which patent? We have like 60 patents on SIN4.
I only read about one that just got approved in June, and I apologize for not being thoroughly understanding of this. But
no, the IP stuff is not my purview as well. It's not my area of expertise. SIN4 is well protected. I can say that. I don't know the specifics of it. It's again not my area of expertise. But when developing the program, when developing the drug, we do make some changes to further bolster our intellectual property estate. I don't want to say that it's completely unencumbered. I don't want to speak out of turn, and I don't want to give you misinformation. But again, all of that stuff is publicly available. You can go into the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office and find everything that's
Right. I did.
So,
Have you ever had an attorney assess it for freedom to proceed? Or
we have a specific IP attorney that we use. He's very thorough.
okay, so he's done that. Okay, all right. I don't have any other questions. I'll be down there. I mean, I'm trying to decide, how to report on this. It seemed like it was pretty exciting, but I misunderstood a lot. So I thank you for being so thorough.
Sure, anytime.
Thank you very much.